5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We are live. Coming to you live. It's Lichtman Live on Thanksgiving Day. Happy Thanksgiving. Say what's up to the people, Dad.
Happy Thanksgiving to our brilliant and astute audience. This is our special Thanksgiving show.
Yes.
We're going to give you a special treat tonight, right, Sam?
Yes.
We are going to do rankings of the American presidents. What could be more important than that?
Sounds like a pretty fun show to me, Dad. So
Should be.
He is right. We are doing a presidential tier list today. Now, 2 Thanksgivings ago, we also did a tier list. So we did about, I think, 21 presidents. We've got the rest here today. It's going to be a lot of fun. Eventually, I think we'll do something cool where we'll combine the 2 videos and it'll be a complete ranking list. But happy Thanksgiving to everybody. Go Ravens.
I think they were winning.
Last time I checked, they were winning. But let's get right into this list because that's the fun part. That's the Thanksgiving
special. Are we
special.
going to open it up for questions or just go through this?
At the end, we will open it up for questions if we have time. Is that cool?
Cool. And that'll be members and donators.
And remember that the original 21 are part of a Thanksgiving special we did 2 years ago. So if after this you want to go watch that, go ahead and do that because that'll be a lot of fun, I think, for everybody. Again, eventually I will combine them into one big video for people to watch that are just looking for the presidential list. Any Thanksgiving message for the people, Dad?
Yes, there's a lot to be thankful for on this Thanksgiving, but there's a lot to be wary about. America really is in a critical pivot point of its history, and it's hard to know which direction it's going to follow in the near future.
Well, let's talk about the history for now.
The past is prologue. You can't understand the present without grasping the past.
All right, let's get into our presidential tier list. If you've never done a tier list before, this is how it's structured. There's an S tier, which means superior tier. And then there's A, B, C, D, F. Just like
F. Oh, gosh.
Just like you'd grade a paper. And A is excellent, and so on and so forth. Does that make sense to you, Dad?
Yes.
So I'll pose a president to you, and then after that, you tell me a little bit about them and which tier you want to put them in.
Great.
You're the world authority on this.
Correct.
The whole YouTube universe is watching with bated breath to see your rankings. No pressure.
I can handle it.
Good. Our first president to be ranked on our presidential tier list is John Adams.
John Adams was one of the most brilliant political thinkers among the American framers. He was the first president after the 2 terms of George Washington. But it was not an especially successful term, although it was mixed. He got embroiled in international conflicts, particularly with France, that he could not resolve. He did not have truly major, path-breaking, significant legislative accomplishments that advanced the interests of ordinary Americans. But he did something of great consequence and significance.
What?
If controversial.
What?
He was the last Federalist president, but he put Federalists on the courts. Never underestimate that sometimes the most lasting legacy of a president is their lifetime court appointments. And particularly significant was the appointment of certainly one of the 2 or 3 most significant Chief Justices in American history. You know who I'm talking about, Sam?
No.
John Marshall. John Adams served 1 term.
John Marshall, that's the name of one of my friends.
Yeah. Probably not the same guy, but maybe a descendant.
Maybe.
John Marshall served for over 30 years as a dominant Chief Justice and put the principles of federalism on the Constitution. Even though the Federalist Party faded away, it would never again win the presidency or retain control over the Congress of the United States. It was supplanted by Thomas Jefferson's Democratic Republicans, who Jefferson beat Adams in the first truly contested presidential election that really matched two proto-political parties against one another. And Jefferson and Adams became bitter enemies, but about a decade later reconciled and became great pen pals and died almost simultaneously some years later. So I would give him probably a B-.
There's no such thing as B- on this.
All right, a C.
I just explained to you the whole tier system.
I know, but I thought I could do. I always
no
do.
B-.
Give him a C.
C. John Adams.
Gentleman C.
Gentleman C. Thank you to George Politis for $160 Australian dollar donation. Thank you so much.
How much is that in U.S.?
I don't know, but close.
Okay, thank you.
I see people in the chat freaking out. No Trump, no Obama. We had a tier list that we did 2 years ago on Thanksgiving Day. If you want to see folks like Obama, Trump, people who aren't here today, they're ranked on that list.
Maybe we could do a slight update of Trump. Since the last time we did it, he was not president.
But he had already served his first term.
True, but the lot.
No. Trump, right. That's there. They can go watch it after this if they want it.
Okay, let's move on.
The next president we have on our tier list is James Madison.
James Madison was the founder, really the framer, most important framer of the Constitution of the United States, and the author of the Bill of Rights. Served in the Congress quite admirably. If it had stopped there, he would go down in history as one of the greatest of Americans. But although he served 2 terms as president, they were very rocky terms. He fought one of the most disastrous wars in American history. You know what war we're talking about?
War of 1812.
War of 1812, when the British burned the Capitol. And John Adams had to flee. His bacon was kind of pulled out of the fire.
Bacon?
Yes, by General Andrew Jackson, who, even after the war was really over, fought one of the great successful battles in the history of the country. You know what that was, Sam?
No.
The Battle of New Orleans.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, celebrated in song and story. You don't know the song? We marched down to New Orleans with General Jackson, fit the Battle of New Orleans.
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah. So, if I would just judge him on the presidency, it would be a C. But looking at his whole career, I give him a B.
Okay. James Madison gets a B. These are
generous B.
Generous B for James Madison. Our next president up on our presidential tier list is James Monroe. 2 Jameses in a row, huh?
Yeah. James Monroe was kind of the last of the great Virginia dynasty presidents succeeding James Madison. And he was responsible for probably the greatest foreign policy coup in the history of the country. You know what that was, Sam? It has his name on it.
Monroe Doctrine.
Yes!
Wow.
The Monroe Doctrine, largely crafted by his brilliant Secretary of State and later President John Quincy Adams, but it was the Monroe Doctrine, which proved over the years to be an extraordinary successful element of American foreign policy. In fact, it was the greatest bluff in American history, one of the greatest bluffs in history. Basically, he declared in the Monroe Doctrine the Western Hemisphere off limits to the European powers. Didn't have the strength militarily to enforce it, but somehow the bluff worked, and to this day remains a cornerstone of American foreign policy. On that, I give him a B.
Wow, 2 B's in a row, 2 Jameses in a row, and 2 B's in a row. Who would have thunk it? While he's giving his explanation, guys, in the chat, people who are watching live, I want you to predict what Professor Allan Lichtman is going to put which president. I want to see that in the chat. Sounds good, Dad?
I'm always up for that.
Next up is John Quincy Adams. So we've had 2 Jameses, 2 Adamses.
Yes. John Quincy Adams was, of course, part of the Adams dynasty, the son of President John Adams. And he won the presidential election of 1824 under great controversy. Under the Constitution, to win the presidency, you have to not only be ahead in the electoral vote, but what do you need in the electoral vote, Sam?
Electors.
A majority.
Right.
And his opponent, his bitter opponent, Andrew Jackson, was actually ahead in the Electoral College vote and ahead in the popular vote, but neither one of them had a majority of the Electoral College. Even though Jackson won a plurality, he was a bit short of a majority. So you know what happens when no one wins a majority?
No.
It goes to the U.S. House.
Yikes, that would be a nightmare right now.
No kidding. With every state just having one vote, no matter how large or small the state. That's right. So New York and Rhode Island each have one vote.
That's nuts.
And, of course, the Jackson people argued he should be selected by the House because he was the clear front runner, even though he didn't win a majority. Didn't work out that way.
Wow.
Jackson's bitter enemy, Henry Clay, the Speaker of the House, engineered it so that John Quincy Adams would be elected president.
Wow.
He then appointed Henry Clay Secretary of State, which was at those days considered a jumping stone to the presidency. Jackson's supporters cried, "Corrupt bargain," but they did not impede the peaceful transfer of power. They accepted the election, and they would get their revenge in the next election. Quincy Adams was kind of ahead of his time.
Right.
He was a strong supporter of building infrastructure, supporting education, but he was very charisma challenged and served only one term. He was roundly beaten by Andrew Jackson in 1828. Give him a B.
Well, 3 Bs in a row.
Yep. Mediocrity here.
Okay, a lot of mediocrity here.
Yeah, no greatness.
Our next president is Martin Van Buren. That always sounds to me like some sort of oil tycoon or something. Martin Van Buren.
One of the worst presidents.
Really?
Yes. Martin Van Buren served. He had really no electoral experience before this. He was a diplomat and had a disastrous term. He was elected in 1856. So he was the president, right, in the midst of the horrible conflict over slavery. And he was pro-slavery. He supported, and some say even engineered, the most notorious Supreme Court decision, arguably, maybe until the overturning of Roe versus Wade, but I would say even worse. Do you know what that decision was?
No.
The Dred Scott decision, the name of a slave, in which the Supreme Court said slaves had no rights.
Right.
They were property.
Yikes.
And even in free states, they were still property and still slaves and had to be returned to the masters who owned the property.
Not good.
Not good. Really sparked the abolitionist movement and led the nation towards civil war, which Martin Van Buren did nothing to stop.
This guy sounds like he's terrible.
Terrible. Put him in an F.
F? Wow. F tier for Martin Van Buren. That's lowly. But apparently he deserves it, huh?
Oh, he merits it. Nothing positive, really, about Martin Van Buren.
Nothing positive about Van Buren.
He served in one of the most pivotal moments of American history and didn't live up to the times.
Interesting.
Quite the contrary.
I didn't see many predictions in the chat. Oh, no, some people did say F.
Yeah.
We got a couple Fs.
All right.
Our next president up is William Henry Harrison.
Can we give it an I?
What's an I?
Incomplete.
Sure, you can just
William
not
Henry
rank
Harrison delivered the longest, most boring, most droning inaugural address, almost 2 hours in the rain. Shortly thereafter fell ill and only served about a month in office, accomplished absolutely nothing. Now, some say, he caught a cold, which turned into pneumonia as a result of his ridiculous inaugural address in bad weather. Others say maybe it wasn't that. He suffered from food poisoning. But regardless, his presidency ended essentially, to quote a great song by Bob Dylan, before it was even a morning. That's why I say an eye.
Right. He died on our birthday. Did you know that?
Yes, I did know that.
Okay,
That's
so
how short he was in office.
William Henry Harrison gets an eye. Our next president is John Tyler.
John Tyler, the first accidental president. He became president when William Henry Harris, an old Tippecanoe, a war hero, was elected. And it was kind of Tippecanoe and Tyler too. And Tyler didn't do a whole lot as president, was kind of rubbing up against the mainstream of his party. But he established one of the most important precedents in American history.
What's that?
That is, I'm not an acting president. I am not just holding the office. I am the president of the United States. And he wouldn't even accept any correspondence that didn't address him as President John Tyler. So while it was not, a especially successful administration, I've got to give him a B just for that.
Oh, come on.
Yeah, I got to give him. It's so important.
So many B's.
You know how many accidental presidents there have been? Just a huge number.
Right. No, I agree. That is an important precedent that he set. All right, we now have 4 B's, Dad.
Yeah.
And we have 1 incomplete.
No A's and no outstandings.
No, and we also gave, I believe, in our first ever tier ranking list, we gave JFK an incomplete too. So we have given incompletes before.
Yes.
All right, our next president on our presidential tier list is Zachary Taylor.
Yeah, Zachary Taylor was another president who died in office, didn't accomplish very much. The controversy over slavery was brewing greatly during his term, and he did very little to stop it. So I would rank him a C.
Okay, we have Zachary Taylor as a C.
Can I have my drink?
Give me 1 second, sir, while I rank this. Okay. What's interesting, I didn't know, it seems that all these guys took office and left office on March 4th. Was that the old inauguration?
March 4th was the old inauguration date until the lame duck amendment made it January 20th. The first president, the first president to be inaugurated
on January 20th?
One of the most famous presidents in history.
Abraham Lincoln.
No, much later than that.
Oh.
20th century. Come on, think famous early 20th century. FDR, 1936.
Nice. Okay, our next president up to bat. Although we're not playing baseball, we're doing a tier list.
So what does our chat say about my calls?
What does everybody think about the calls so far? Let us know in the chat. I can't really tell from afar.
Well, let's keep going. Maybe when we get through most of them, we'll take a poll.
Yeah. I would be surprised if people disagreed with you, but hey, you never know, I guess.
This is very subjective.
Right.
I mean, there's some objectivity to it. The Monroe Doctrine is the Monroe Doctrine.
Right.
The burning of Washington is the burning of Washington.
Our next president to be ranked is Millard Fillmore.
Millard Fillmore, another accidental president.
Wow.
Also in the crucible of slavery. Did very little to deal with slavery. In fact, under his term, we got a new compromise, the Compromise of 1850, which repealed what had been the earlier compromise, Henry Clay's Great Compromise of 1820, that established the Mason-Dixon line as the line between slave and free states. You know something about the Mason-Dixon line, don't you, Sam?
I do, Dad. The Mason-Dixon line was on...
Still is on this little farmhouse we had up in Western Maryland. And Sam, when he was a kid, enjoyed putting one foot on the free side and one foot on the slave side. So there's a C for him.
Okay. C for Millard Fillmore. Okay. Next to bat for the U.S. presidents is Franklin Pierce.
No.
Oh, you don't like this guy?
No, what an abysmal president. A one-termer.
This guy looks closest to like a theater actor to me of all these guys so far.
He was a miserable president who inflamed the controversy of slavery. He was president elected in 1852, when the failure of the Compromise of 1850 was heating up the struggle over slavery. And he backed something called popular sovereignty, the Kansas-Nebraska Act. Instead of trying to uphold the great Henry Clay Compromise of 1820, he instead caused tremendous chaos and strife by adopting the idea of popular sovereignty. That is, in the huge Midwestern Kansas territory, they would decide for themselves whether the territories would be free or slave. Can you imagine how that went, Sam?
Not well.
Not well. Led to horrible chaos, bloodshed, fighting, what was known as Bleeding Kansas, another milestone towards the tragedy of the Civil War. A D.
A D for Franklin Pierce.
A generous D.
A generous D for Franklin Pierce, who looks like a theater actor.
So far, these presidents have not covered themselves in glory.
Well, here's the issue. In part one that we did 2 years ago, I never thought this was going to be, a part two, a second Thanksgiving special. So I picked presidents that were sort of very well known. Oh. So now we've been sort of left with the leftovers of that first one.
And we can see why they were leftovers.
Yeah, and we can see why they're leftovers. Our next president on the list is Andrew Johnson.
Oh, my God.
OMG, Dad.
Yeah, arguably, one of the worst presidents we've ever seen. Another accidental president. In 1864, who was president in 1864 during the Civil War?
Abe Lincoln.
And he was doubtful about his reelection because the war wasn't going all that well. So he dropped his sitting vice president and picked up, guess who, as his vice president?
Andrew Johnson.
And because Johnson was kind of a war Democrat, and he wanted to have a unity ticket. It worked well. Not because of Johnson, but because of victories by Grant and Sherman that turned around the war. Lincoln wins, and what happens at the very beginning of his second term? Yes, and who becomes president?
Andy
Johnson, who obstructs every possible effort to redeem the promise of the Civil War, to provide safety, civil rights, civil liberties, voting rights, to newly freed African-American slaves. He was racist, a slave owner, a vindictive, miserable person. And he was the first president to have inflicted upon him what, Sam? Impeachment. And he skated through by one vote in the United States Senate. Probably fixed, because I don't think they wanted to establish the precedent of convicting him on a pretty slim pretense. I mean, the real objection was his policies, which were just abysmal. He was, of course, never reelected as president, and F.
Wow. A big fat F for Andy Johnson, Dad. Andy J, I like to call him. All right, we already have 2 Fs. No A's, no S's. Wow, this is certainly the top notch of our presidents so far.
We're really dealing with the dregs here.
Yeah.
Next, at best, mediocrity.
Right. Next, we have Rutherford B. Hayes.
Another one-termer, a very controversial president. He was elected in one of the most disputed elections in American history, the election of 1876 in the waning days of Reconstruction. And once again, it was not clear who was elected president. Election results from 3 states, including Florida. It's always Florida. They always seem to be at the core of this.
I know.
And there were conflicting returns because of conflicting governments at the end of Reconstruction. And no one knows who actually won. And there was nothing in the Constitution or in the law of how to settle this. Later, new laws were passed as a result of this. So the Congress formed a special commission, extra constitutional, to decide who would get the electoral votes of, I think, in Louisiana, South Carolina, and Florida, 3 states, in the latter days of Reconstruction. Well, the commission was supposed to be 7 Republicans and 7 Democrats and 1 independent from the Supreme Court. But the independent from the Supreme Court was elected to the U.S. Senate, which in those days was decided by the state legislature. Brilliant move by the Republicans. The only Supreme Court justices left were Republicans, and that gave the commission an 8-7 majority on the commission. And guess how they decided every dispute?
I don't know.
8-7 in favor of the Republicans, which nicknamed Hayes Rutherford B. Hayes.
That's a good one.
Old 8-7.
Right.
But, to his credit, he did promise to serve 1 term. But his term really marked the end of Reconstruction and the beginning of white supremacist takeover of the South. They call it the Redemption. Terrible, terrible name. I call it the desecration.
Right.
Give him a C.
Okay. Rutherford B. Hayes in the C tier.
God, this is pretty pathetic.
Next up, we have James A. Garfield. The cat's named after him, I think, right?
Yeah. I don't know about that. Probably. Another president who didn't serve very long. He was assassinated early in his term. And I think there's a very good documentary about the assassination of James Garfield by Charles Guiteau. Any rate, it wasn't necessarily Guiteau who killed him. It was his doctors. He got such horrible, misleading, unhygienic medical care that after a long period of suffering, James Garfield died as a result of medical malpractice, and Chester A. Arthur became the accidental president. Another incomplete.
Wow. We've already had 2 incompletes. That's pretty wild.
Yeah, we can see, presidents being assassinated, presidents dying of, natural causes in office. A lot of accidental presidents.
No doubt. Speaking of Chester A. Arthur, our next president is
Chester A. Arthur.
Yeah, you're a smart guy, dude.
Yeah, I can see him just by looking at him.
Oh, okay.
I know who all these guys are just by seeing them.
You're a smart guy, Dad.
All right. So, another accidental president. Chet Arthur was the collector of the customs port of New York and considered, kind of a corrupt office holder, not elected. People had very, very dim ideas about Chester Arthur, but he turned out to be a much more positive president than anyone at the time expected. And he presided over one of the most important pieces of legislation in American history. And this is relevant to you, Sam.
To me particularly?
To you in particular as a former government employee.
Oh.
He presided over, and this is kind of ironic given that they thought he was this corrupt, self-serving politician. He presided over the Pendleton Act of 1883. You know what that did?
No.
It established the professional civil service for the first time. So because he was better than expected and did have landmark legislation, I will controversially give him a B.
Wow.
That's pretty good for Chet Arthur.
This is a B is a pretty hefty grade for Chet A. Arthur.
Yeah, and like so many of these other accidental presidents, he did not get reelected onto his own.
Comic Fan says, James A. Garfield could have been one of the best presidents if he didn't get killed.
There are those who argue that, and I wouldn't, you never know.
Right.
But he certainly had the credentials to be at least a good president. Yes, I don't disagree with that, but history is history. Can't rewrite it. The moving finger writes, and not all our tears will wash away a single word.
Wow, that was pretty good.
Yeah.
Wow.
I come up with these things.
Yeah, I don't know how, but you do. Our next president is the one, the only, Grover Cleveland.
Grover Cleveland. Kind of the last of the old-fashioned Democrats.
Oh.
You would not recognize the Democratic Party of Grover Cleveland based upon the Democratic Party of today. He was more like a lot of Republicans. He believed in hard money, states' rights.
What's soft money?
Soft money is like paper money.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
He wanted money backed by gold.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. And he also presided over what was the worst depression prior to the Great Depression of the 1930s, the long, awful depression of the 1890s. What he had as probably his major distinction until Trump, he was the only president to be elected to two non-consecutive terms, 1884 and 1892. So I give him a C.
Wow, a big C for our friend.
I've been pretty generous with a lot of these presidents.
Yeah.
Easily could have given him a D.
Really?
I don't think he's as bad as Franklin Pierce.
Speaking of Garfield, there's a brand new Netflix show called Death by Lightning.
Yeah, I've mentioned that documentary. It's
yeah, but this is this is a brand new narrative show.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, called Death by Lightning.
Yeah.
Which is about James Garfield.
Worth watching.
Have you seen it?
No, but the story is so extraordinary.
Yeah. All right. Next up, we have Benji Harrison, a.k.a. Benjamin Harrison.
Yes, you recall we had another Harrison, right?
Yep.
William Henry. Now we have Benjamin. I have some admiration for Benjamin Harrison.
Really?
Yes. He was elected during the era, early on in the era of Jim Crow. He was the president in between the two terms of Grover Cleveland. And he did try to pass some major civil rights legislation, but it never really got through the Congress. And as a result, he did not have a major accomplishments. And most historians rank him pretty low, but because of that last gasp effort, which really was the last for many, many decades, I will generously give him a B.
Wow, another
That's
B.
against the conventional wisdom.
That's against the conventional wisdom. For
Hey,
sure.
we haven't gotten higher than a B yet, have we?
We have not gotten higher than a B
And those
yet.
Bs are generous.
And we got a lot of generous Bs.
Yeah, I'm ranking presidents fairly generous.
I wonder who you ranked B last time. Should I check real quick?
Why not?
Why not? This is America, right?
Yeah, I, unlike Trump, I'm willing to be held accountable.
Really?
Yes.
Wow, you're a good guy. Yeah, somehow never being accountable became a good thing. I don't know how that happened.
It's pretty twisted.
So it looks like you gave Polk, LBJ, Clinton, and Obama a B.
Okay. I'd say most of those are better than these Bs.
Most of those are better than these Bs.
But we
okay.
were dealing last time with some really great presidents.
Yeah, last time.
We got a lot of A's and above A.
Yeah, in part one, you gave George Washington, Abraham Lincoln, and FDR an S, and you gave Jefferson, Teddy Roosevelt, Woodrow Wilson, Truman, Eisenhower, Reagan an A.
So we were dealing with way better presidents than these, and I think that probably had some influence on the ranking.
Probably that, I would guess so.
Yeah.
All right, but we're on part two right now, and that's what matters to the people at home. Our next president coming up to bat is William McKinley.
Yeah, one of Donald Trump's favorite presidents, but not one of my favorite presidents. Another president who was assassinated, in this case at the beginning of his second term. Do you know who became president when McKinley was assassinated? One of our A-level presidents.
Teddy Roosevelt. You know how I knew that? Because I got the list of presidents right in front of my face.
McKinley was noted for several things, which Trump loves, but I don't.
Tell me.
Spanish-American War, which put America on the path of becoming an imperial power. Upholding hard money. And, of course, a very staunch high tariff guy. So he was important. You know, he really made some major changes. I don't think for the better. So I give him a C.
Okay. A C to McKinley. Wow, we have a lot of C's and a lot of B's.
No A's and no what do you
A's.
call the top tier?
S, superior.
Superior.
Yes.
God, I think we already hit the 3 superiors last time.
Right. You think
Lincoln, Washington, and FDR. I don't think we're going to get a superior.
Okay. Yikes. No superiors tonight, folks.
No.
Next up on the list is the man with the stash, William Howard Taft.
William Howard Taft never really wanted to be president.
Really?
No, wanted to be Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, which he achieved after his presidency. Teddy Roosevelt served the great majority of McKinley's second term, was overwhelmingly reelected for a term of his own, and easily could have won election for a third term. 22nd Amendment did not come into play until Eisenhower, so there was no prohibition about a third term at the time. And he could have broken the Washington tradition, but he decided not to. And he picked his Secretary of War, William Howard Taft, as his hand-picked successor, who he thought would follow through on the policies of Theodore Roosevelt. But Theodore Roosevelt was bitterly disappointed. He thought Taft was ineffective, too conservative, and he challenged Taft for the Republican nomination for Taft's second term in 2012. Did not win the nomination because in those days most delegates were controlled by the party machinery, which would be beholden to the president. But then Teddy Roosevelt ran the most spectacular third-party campaign ever, the Bull Moose campaign, got more popular votes than Taft, split the Republican vote, and led to the election of Woodrow Wilson, the first Democrat since Grover Cleveland, and the Democrat who began the progressive tradition in America. So I give Taft a C.
C's are filling up here, folks, tonight. The C's.
You got a lot of mediocrities here.
No, the C's are now leading.
You know, the better presidents we already
listed.
Yeah.
Next up is Warren G. Harding.
Oh, my God.
You don't like this guy?
No.
Oh.
A guy who was supremely unqualified for the presidency. He was a mediocre senator from Ohio, mostly known for his womanizing and his gambling. He was such a womanizer that during the campaign of 1920, when he was elected, the Republican National Committee paid his mistress. He was, of course, married. He said he had a terrible, he admitted his marriage was terrible, and he had lots of affairs. They sent his mistress around the world to keep her quiet. And he was also notoriously known for having an affair with Nan Britton while in the White House and fathering her child.
Yikes.
Which, of course, he denied, and all of his supporters denied that, vilified Britton as a liar and as a loose woman. He did some good things, like the Bureau of the Budget, some disarmament, made some very good appointments, like Herbert Hoover as Secretary of Commerce, which was very important in those days, Charles Evan Hughes as Secretary of State, but also presided over one of the worst scandals in American history, the Teapot Dome scandal. Does that ring a bell, Sam?
Sounds familiar.
Yeah. It was named Teapot Dome because that was one of the federal oil reserves that was given to private interests when they bribed Albert Fall, the Secretary of the Interior, who became the first cabinet member to be sentenced to prison. And there were a whole bunch of other corrupt officials at the high levels of the Harding administration, including the Attorney General and other top officials. But Harding escaped all this because in the middle of the scandal, you know what happened to him?
He died.
He died. So, you know, who knows how much of it was just bad judgment. Certainly was one of the worst sets of judgment we've ever seen, and it'll never be known whether he had any involvement, maybe not. His wife, who, remember, they hated each other, burned all of his papers.
Yikes.
Yes. So we know very little, about the true inside of the Harding administration. I give him a D.
Wow. Our second D next to our friend Pierce here, Dad.
Do you want to take a poll, or you want to go further along?
Let's keep going. What's the poll that you would like to do?
do they agree or disagree with my rankings?
We'll do that at the end. How about them apples?
Why not? How many more do we have?
We have 5 more presidents to go.
All right, I think I can deal with that.
Can you deal with that?
Yep.
Okay, we're trudging forward with the double C man, Calvin Coolidge.
Silent Cal. Yeah. Another accidental president.
These guys were all accidental presidents.
So many of them.
Jeez.
Yeah. Became president in the middle of the scandal involving Teapot Dome, but was himself above reproach. And, he was this very dour New Englander. As one reporter put it, Calvin Coolidge looked like he was weaned on a pickle.
Wait, I love pickles.
Take a look at him. You can see. And was, one of the most conservative presidents we've ever had. Balanced the budget. Also presided. You think anti-immigration is something new. It's been threaded throughout American history, and Calvin Coolidge presided over the most draconian anti-immigration pieces of legislation in our history, Sam.
Really?
The Reed-Johnson Act of 1924, which barred Asians from entering at all into the United States and established quotas for Europe of only 150,000, and the great bulk of the quotas, guess what, went to the Protestant countries of Western and Northern Europe. The more heavily Jewish Catholic countries in Eastern and Southern Europe, like Poland, Russia, Lithuania, Italy, got minuscule quotas. It also established the visa system, which has been used so discriminatorily to control our borders. I give him a C.
Okay, a C for, what'd you call him? Crispy Calvin or something?
Silent Cal, they called him.
Cal.
He decided not to run again in 1928, although he certainly could have. And he's, I think he gave a 7-word explanation. Do you know what it was? I do not choose to run for president in 1928. And that was the end of it.
That's pretty good. I kind of like that.
He would not elaborate.
I kind of like that.
One of his beloved son also died during his term, and some say as a result of that he was clinically depressed, which helps explain
That's sad.
Why he wanted to withdraw from politics. It was a very sad story.
Yeah, geez. All right, we are now in the modern era. We finally have color photos, Dad, of our presidents here.
Wow.
Our first one.
Looks like you got color photos of, some of the John Quincy Adams.
Those are painted portraits.
I know what they are.
That's before photography
invented.
They're
not photos.
We had portraits, then we had black and white photos, and then we had color photos.
I'm aware of that.
Our first color photo is of Gerald Ford.
The most accidental of presidents.
Right, seriously.
All right. He became president without having served anything higher than a single congressional district in Michigan, Grand Rapids. Richard Nixon resigned the presidency. Excuse me, I'll back up. Spiro Agnew, Richard Nixon's corrupt president, was found by the Justice Department to have been taking bribes while governor of, unfortunately, my state of Maryland, and he was taking them apparently in the old-fashioned way, Sam, shopping bags full of $100 bills. They had him cold, but they cut a deal. You resign the vice presidency, you never re-enter politics, you plead 1 count of no contest to tax evasion, no jail time, no nothing, but you disappear. By this time, the 25th Amendment to the Constitution was in place. And so for the first time, President Nixon then got to appoint a vice president. And he appointed the very popular but kind of non-entity minority leader of the House, Gerald Ford. So he becomes an accidental vice president. And then, of course, in 1974, in the wake of the Watergate scandal, Nixon resigns. So what happens when Nixon resigns, Sam?
Ruh-roh.
Gerald Ford becomes president, double accidental president. What was one of the first things he did that was so controversial and remains so today?
What did Gerald?
Pardons Nixon from all crimes. He also presided over the fall of Vietnam, the horrendous retreat. had a very rough economy, did some good things, set us on the road to some needed deregulation, and was, leaving aside the Nixon pardon, which, it has some justification. He didn't want his presidency to be consumed by the trials of Nixon. Other than that, he was, in contrast to Nixon, not as brilliant or as effective, but a pretty honest president, so I give him a C.
Another C. Our C category is pretty robust.
Yeah, the line between the C and the B is pretty close.
Right.
I stand by my lower ones, though.
Right.
Those are, if anything, generous.
Gotcha. Next up, we have Jimmy Carter.
I love Jimmy Carter. I got to know him fairly well. I have a famous story about Jimmy Carter. You want to hear it?
Yes.
So, I think this was 1979.
You were alive in 1979?
I was already old in
What?
I was 32.
Holy moly.
And I was a serious runner then. And I entered the Catoctin Mountain 10-kilometer race. You know where the Catoctin Mountains are, Sam?
No.
Next to a famous presidential retreat.
Camp David?
Next to Camp David. And I'm getting ready to run the race, and I look to my left, and about 5 to 10 feet to my left is this skinny guy, this pale, skinny guy who looks like he's wearing his underwear. You know who it was?
Jimmy Carter.
Jimmy Carter. And I'm thinking, oh, my God, I can run with the president. No, I want to win the race. I didn't win the race. I finished in the top 10. But some of my friends were smarter than me, and they followed Jimmy Carter. And this was the notorious race where Jimmy Carter collapsed. And my buddies got somewhat rich in those days because they had the picture that was all over the press of Jimmy Carter collapsing. And this was sort of a symbol of a collapsing president. Well, it was all wrong on so many levels. Number one, it was not surprising that someone who's not a regularly trained runner like the president with a very high-stress job might collapse. It was the toughest race I've ever run. 5 kilometers, 3.2 miles down, 5 kilometers up. So you're finishing over 3 miles straight up. And then something amazing happened that never got reported, but is really indicative of what a fine man Jimmy Carter was. With no fanfare, no press, he shows up at the awards ceremony after collapsing and gives us this amazing, inspirational speech. Just to do it, not to get any kind of fanfare or publicity. But as we know, Jimmy Carter had a very, very troubled presidency, the Iran hostage crisis, the stagflation, the really inability to enact major consequential legislation. He had very good ideas, very moral man, wanted to, way back then, deal with the energy crisis, move towards clean energy, establish a moral approach, highlighting human rights in our foreign policy. Imagine that. So, unfortunately, I got to give him a C. Much as I love the guy.
Jimmy Carter, even though he likes him, is going in the C category with pretty much everybody else tonight.
Yeah.
All right. Our final two presidents. The first one of our final two is George H.W. Bush.
I think H.W. Bush is one of the most underrated of our presidents.
Really? Why?
Yes. He had some of the most amazing accomplishments of any president.
Okay, tell me.
First, according to the popular conventional wisdom, 3 people were responsible for winning the Cold War and toppling the Soviet Union: the Pope, the Iron Lady Margaret Thatcher, and President Ronald Reagan. And they all deserve much credit. But who actually presided over the fall of the Berlin Wall, the bringing down of the Iron Curtain, and the collapse of the Soviet Union, and the unification of Germany? You know who that was?
H.W.
H.W. Bush. And he did it all without firing a single shot. Imagine that.
That's pretty good.
Just through amazing, extraordinary diplomacy. And, another great story. One of his aides said, you need to get up on a soapbox and, trumpet these incredible victories. Ronald Reagan would have done that. And he said, no, that's not my style. I don't want to do it. I want to achieve things by quiet diplomacy and not blow my own horn. I'm paraphrasing, but that's essentially. And he had another extraordinary foreign policy.
Tell me.
The Gulf War of 1991. Remember, Saddam Hussein had taken over another sovereign nation, very rare thing in post-World War II era, Kuwait. And H.W. Bush put together this extraordinary coalition of, Arab states hostile to the U.S., allies to throw Saddam out of Kuwait. And they did so efficiently and effectively. And then the path to Baghdad was open. The great general, you know who the great general was? Stormin Norman Schwarzkopf, really maybe the only heroic general we've had since the Korean War. The path was open. We could have gone to Baghdad, toppled Saddam. But wisely, H.W. Bush decided not to do that, and he was supported, ironically, by his Secretary of Defense, you know who that was, just died.
Cheney.
Dick Cheney, and by his National Security Advisor, one of the most famous National Security Advisors and generals, Colin Powell. And ironically, it was Cheney and Powell who helped engineer the, horrible, ineffective, disastrous invasion of Iraq in 2003 under H.W. Bush's son, George W. Bush. And while his domestic accomplishments are not much and are denigrated, he did preside over one of the most important pieces of legislation that affects tens of millions of Americans and is very important today, the Americans with Disabilities Act. I give him an A.
Wow, our first A of the night goes to H.W. Bush. Now,
again, probably contrary to the popular wisdom, a Republican.
Right.
But I give him an A.
Now, is there any truth to the fact that I've heard some people criticize him saying he, started the whole conflict in the Middle East. He was sort of the catalyst for the nightmarish sort of foreign policy that followed with his son and, et cetera.
Very different. As I said, he exercised restraint.
Okay.
It was a noble effort supported by the world to get Saddam out of Kuwait. And then he didn't do the disastrous next step of toppling the Iraqi government. Colin Powell called it the pottery barn theory. You know what that is?
No.
You break it, you own it. Right? And we did not want to own Iraq, which was not a unified nation. It was divided among three conflicting groups. You know what they are?
No.
The Sunni, the Shiites, and the Kurds.
Actually, I did know that.
Yeah. All right.
All right. Our final president is Joseph R. Biden, who hasn't even been out of office for a year, but...
Yeah, it's very hard to judge Biden. Okay. On the one hand, he was a political disaster, right?
Right.
Democrats should have won in 2024, but Biden could not hold on to the presidency. He was attacked by his own party, thrown out of the nomination, and that led to the toppling of the dominoes that led to the most disastrous presidential election, certainly one of them in our history, 2024. On the other hand, it was Biden and Biden alone who put together the coalition that stopped Vladimir Putin from quickly conquering Ukraine. He would have done it if Biden hadn't acted and threatened our NATO allies and ultimately the United States. Putin is not our friend. He's a bloody, murderous dictator who wants to destroy democracy everywhere. Joe Biden, and he never could sell it. It was part of his downfall, along with, his alleged cognitive decline. He presided over the greatest set of domestic policy accomplishments since Lyndon Johnson. The CHIPS Act, the Stimulus Act, the Infrastructure Act, the Inflation and Climate Change Act, the Pitt-Burns Act, just to name some of them. On his accomplishments alone, I would give him an A. But given, the disastrous effects politically of his term, I've got to give him a B.
Okay, B for Biden. That's not surprising. I thought you were going to give him a B, to be honest.
God, only one president above a B. That's pretty sad.
Here is our full list, our part 2 list. Only one president at A. Do you want to review this, Dad? Do you
None at S.
None at S tonight. You said that in part 1, those 3, Lincoln, FDR, Washington, are the only 3 that deserve an S.
Right. There were a lot of others, as we saw, who deserved an A.
Right.
But we kind of went through most of the successful presidents. I don't want to have to recap all of this again. It's right up there on your chart.
Oh, I thought you were going to read it out. Okay, well, it's right up here on our chart. He's not going to review it.
No. I want to do the poll.
Oh, right. He wants to do the poll. Okay. Well, we have most in C, then B, 2 in D, 2 in F, and only 1 in A, H.W. Bush. Now, let's get to our poll.
Yes, let me remind them of who the Fs are.
Okay.
They are Andrew Johnson.
Yep.
And Martin Van Buren.
Yes.
And the Ds are Warren Harding and Franklin Pierce.
Right. Thanks for that, Dad.
The others are all,
and then
except for Bush, at A in the mediocrity range.
Okay. So what do you want the poll to read exactly?
Do you agree or disagree? I mean, we can't, have a poll on all the rankings.
Right. Do you generally agree or disagree with Allan's rankings? How about that?
That's good.
Okay. Starting a poll. Do you generally agree or disagree with Allan's rankings? Agree.
Generally, obviously, you're going to have exceptions.
That's why I put generally in it. All right, the poll is out, Dad.
How much time do we have left?
None. We're actually over time already. Yeah, we're a little bit over time. We're at.
Can we take 1 or 2 questions while we're waiting for the poll?
Yeah, let's take 1 or 2 questions while we're waiting.
I don't mind going
poll.
a little over.
Oh, you don't?
I need the exercise after the Thanksgiving. We had a great Thanksgiving dinner at Karen Strickler, my wife, and Sam's mom's sister's house, the old farmhouse where they all grew up.
Yeah, it was actually very good.
It was awesome.
All right, I'm going to pull up.
Just 2 questions.
To pull up some questions.
And then we can check the poll and say goodnight.
Right. Okay. This is from James Tyler 3606, $20 donation. They say, I think regardless of his performance as president, as a human being, Joe is incredibly resilient. He lost his wife and daughters, sons, etc., and is dealing with cancer and still moves forward. Do you agree with that?
Who are we talking about?
Joe Biden. That personally, he's a very resilient figure.
Absolutely, a very resilient figure. And as I said, based on what he did for the country, I'd give him an A. But sadly, part of the presidency is political.
Yeah, no doubt. This is a $5 donation from Fry Jemmy. They say, how did H.W. Bush's job at the CIA help him with his negotiations? He probably had a lot of dirt on everybody, and that probably helped.
He probably did. He was director of the CIA. Actually had very little electoral office experience. And all that stuff is classified, but no doubt his experience with the CIA helped make him the great foreign policy president. I have no doubt about that, although I don't have access to the classified information.
Philip H. and Secular Monk, both with $5 donations, they both say they think Biden should get an A. But,
as I said, based upon his policy accomplishments, I couldn't agree more.
Right.
But that's not the sole measure of a presidency, unfortunately. Your brilliant mom says we should put all of our rankings together from the last on this for a complete picture.
Yeah, I already said that I was going to post a separate video with both of those together.
Okay.
I can't do it right this second.
No, we're already well over time.
William McKinley, to me, is one of the worst presidents, in my opinion, because of the Philippine War.
The Philippine War was, I didn't get into every detail, but I did say he put us on a disastrous path towards imperialism. And one of the worst aspects of it was this racist, violent putting down of the nationalist rebellion in the Philippines. One of the blots on American history. And guess what? Guess who finished that off? It wasn't McKinley. It was his successor, Theodore Roosevelt. They're both implicated in it.
Gotcha. All right, before we sign off for the night, I just want to give a shout-out to some donators and some members. Lori Robinson for becoming a member.
You want to check the poll first?
Let me just finish this. Limited Light for becoming Limited Light for your donation. Michael Sheffield, comic fan. Mary McHugh2 says, Happy Thanksgiving.
Same to you, Mary.
Fried Jemmy, Thor, James Philip H., Secular Monk. I think that's everybody who donated tonight. Oh, and of course, George Politis, who donated quite a bit. So thank you to George, as per usual. Do you generally agree or disagree with Allan's rankings? We have how many votes? Almost 200 votes, and 80%, 81%, up 80% say they agree with you. 20% say they generally
That's
disagree.
pretty damn good. You almost never get 80%.
You almost never get 80% in a poll.
All right.
1 second before we sign off, I just wanted to say that we have over 700 viewers right now, but only 300 likes. Make sure if you're watching to like the stream. If you're watching after the live, give us a like too. Comment down below. Subscribe if you're not subscribed, and become a member today. That helps us out a lot. Look out for a video combining these two lists. I'm going to try to finish it tonight and get it out tomorrow. So make sure you check that out tomorrow. Give it a like, share it. It'll be awesome. All right, Dad. Any final words to the people tonight?
As always, we got very astute questions. Stay tuned Tuesday. We'll return to our analysis from an historical perspective and an in-depth perspective of the most significant current events. So we hope to see every one of you on Tuesday, same time, 9 p.m.
Yes, thank you to Movie Boy for a last-second donation. Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you to the Switchboard for a donation. Happy Thanksgiving. I hope you all either had a great meal or having a great meal. We appreciate each and every one of you for watching. We will see you on Tuesday. Good night.
Good night.
Jeez.